John chapter 9. John chapter 9. And please stand with me through the reading of God's Word. John chapter 9. And we'll read the first 7 verses this morning to begin with. John chapter 9, and let's start at verse 1. And as Jesus passed by, he saw a man which was blind from his birth. And his disciples asked him, saying, Master, who did sin, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Jesus answered, Neither hath this man sinned, nor his parents, but that the works of God should be made manifest in him. I must work the works of him that sent me while it is day. The night cometh when no man can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. When he had thus spoken, he spat on the ground and made clay of the spittle, and he anointed the eyes of the blind man with the clay, and said unto him, Go, wash in the pool of Siloam, which is by interpretation sent. He went his way therefore and washed, and came seeing. And the message will stop there for now. The message this morning is a man, a miracle, and conventional wisdom. And as we go through the rest of this chapter, we'll see how conventional wisdom fits into some things going on here. A man, a miracle, and conventional wisdom. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for your word, and thank you for each one who's here this morning. And I do pray that you would speak to every heart. May the message be clear and plain. May what is spoken be exactly what you want it to be. And may we have open hearts to receive your word. In Jesus' name, amen. You may be seated. Conventional wisdom. Conventional wisdom is the generally accepted belief, opinion, judgment, or prediction about a particular matter. Now in this chapter we see there's a man. Well, there's more than one man. But the man I'm thinking of is the blind man. And of course, then there's the man Jesus. There's the miracle that Jesus did in healing this blind man and restoring his sight. But there's also some conventional wisdom that was not true. There's a saying that conventional wisdom is universal stupidity, which at times it is. Not all conventional wisdom is inaccurate, but conventional wisdom is the generally accepted belief, opinion, judgment, or prediction about a particular matter. It's basically something most people don't even think about. It's just readily accepted. All right, this is just reality. It's generally accepted as true. Doesn't always mean it is. There was one, I don't know if a news outlet did this several years ago or who it was, but I found this some examples of opposite lessons of conventional wisdom. There was this poll or this question put out on an online forum saying, what are some lessons that you have learned that are actually opposite of conventional wisdom? And I'll give you a few of these. And one of them is, one of the lessons opposite of conventional wisdom is if you strongly dislike a trait in someone else or are critical of something, you're probably that way yourself. I tend to agree with that. In many cases, people who are the most critical, the thing that you find the most infuriating or frustrating about other people, really you just look in the mirror and you're really that way yourself. Why do I say I think that's true? Because I look at my kids and it's the same way. The things that bother me the most about my children, if I look in the mirror, I guess I can't get too upset about that because I'm probably the exact same way. Or at least was at one point in my life the exact same way. And many times the things we dislike the most, it's because it's in ourselves and that's why we dislike it so much. And for example, people worried about their looks call others ugly. And folks that are self-conscious about salaries and status criticize others' jobs. That was what one person said here. And I'm not saying all of these opposite lessons they're all 100% correct. I'm just saying here's some lessons that people have said that are opposite of conventional wisdom. So you can decide what you think about it and which one is more accurate. One of the other lessons that would be opposite of conventional wisdom, when you sit with a feeling, you can move beyond it. If you flee from having to experience an unpleasant emotion, feeling incompetent when first learning a skill, for example, then you end up being controlled by it. And so this person said, if you can't handle feeling incompetent, it's going to keep you from trying new things. Another one was, being interesting comes from being interested. Being a fascinating, charismatic person is a result of being fascinated by the humans, history, and objects outside of yourself. And who does anybody here like a self-absorbed person? Anybody like, besides yourself, if you're self-absorbed? I mean, self-absorbed people like themselves, but at least I think most of them do. But no, I mean, who is a person who's the most interesting? Someone who's going to be more engaging with the world around them. Not someone who's just all bottled up into their own life and their own world. It's someone who is engaging the world around them. Not everybody's, some personalities lend themselves to be that not everybody's going to be, not all interesting people are charismatic people. But being interesting comes from being interested. You ever hear the conventional wisdom is money can't buy you happiness? All right. One person had a different thought. They said money can buy happiness if you spend it on the right things. Investing in a nicer bed will give you a better rest at night and more energy in the day, while moving closer to your work and reducing your commute will directly improve your happiness levels, according to research. So money can buy happiness. Doesn't mean we should love money. It doesn't mean, but there are some things that we can do with money if we use it the right that actually does make our lives a bit better and maybe makes us more happy. But we should, and of course, this is from a secular source. I'm just giving you some things that people have said. This is not all, as far as from a Christian perspective. The fact of the matter is, for the Christian, our ultimate joy and happiness comes to the Lord Jesus Christ, no matter how much money we have. But the point is if you're generally going to be happier if you get a good night of sleep. If you have the money to get a nice mattress that gives you a good night of sleep, well, then money can buy happiness. So, some people do all they can to avoid conflict, but one person says conflict can be healthy. Productive disagreement is a hallmark of successful teams. And they put in parentheses, just ask Jeff Bezos. Let's see. Now this one might strike. And these are just ones that individuals contributed. Once again, this is not hard, fast rules of life. But one person said laziness can be a great trait for a leader. Now that would go against conventional wisdom. But there's an explanation here. Insanely hard workers have a tough time delegating, while the constructively lazy are happy to delegate tasks to the team, thus making their direct reports feel happier and more empowered. So, do you follow that? I got it. I followed it. I mean, it's not saying it's good to be lazy, but at the same time, if someone wants to, now if you just have, if a leader has laziness emanating from them, it's probably not going to help in their the people working for them and their team. It's not. Someone else says it's not all about intelligence. Beyond IQ, successful people have grit and are conscientious. I like that one. I like that one. Grit is something that, some people can be really smart, but they have no grit whatsoever in life. I mean, they have no, as one person said, intestinal fortitude, as the saying goes. But so I like that one. This is another one. People oftentimes do what they can to not think about death. But one person says, thinking about your death can be good for you. Reflecting on your mortality forces you to consider your life as a whole, plus the legacy you want to leave behind. This helps you to better distinguish between seeking meaning and pleasure. Now, there's another way to look at that from a Christian perspective is thinking about your death can be good for you because then when you reflect on your mortality, it forces you to consider your life as a whole as far as what am I doing for the Lord? Am I living the most fulfilling life that I can in the center of God's will? What's God's will for my life? And every day, am I just yielding myself to God and to His will? Or am I just filling up my life with a lot of things that from an eternal perspective don't matter? And thinking about death can help with that. Another one is, we are bad at predicting what will make us happy. And the last one here, one of the pieces of conventional wisdom is that I just need to vent. I need to vent my anger a bit. And after that, I'll feel better. After that, that'll fix things if I just vent my anger. One person said, and I agree with this, is, quote, getting out your anger just makes you an angrier person. You know, if someone has to vent their anger at times, well, that's not the last time in their life they have to vent. They usually have another time they have to vent. Getting out your anger just makes you an angrier person. Rather than venting your frustrations, expressing your anger whenever you feel the urge just reinforces a pattern of aggression. So if people that are angry need to deal with whatever is causing that anger to begin with. And it's not, and don't look externally, look internally and say, what response do I need to have that's different to deal with this anger, because knowing that this anger is not good and not healthy. And because there might be things that other people do that make you angry, but we don't always have the power to change other people. We can change our own responses. And so just getting it out is not something that's going to fix anything. We need to deal with whatever those root things are, which at times involves talking about it with someone, but not just simply, well, let me vent for a while and then I'll be okay. And then, well, then everybody around you is just going to think, well, when's the next time he's going to have to vent? And not a healthy environment. So those are some things that might go against, some lessons that people have said that go against conventional wisdom. What we have here is some conventional wisdom in John chapter 9. And the first one we did read in our text in verses 1 through 5. The first part of conventional wisdom had to do with why the man was blind. Why the man was blind. Let's read verse 1 again. And as Jesus passed by, he saw a man which was blind from his birth. And his disciples asked him, saying, Master, who did sin, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? So what are they doing? They're making an assumption. It was apparently their conventional wisdom. That is, they're just accepting something as true, just a generally accepted belief. Who sinned? There's a lot of assumption in that question. Who sinned that he was born blind? Now, what's funny is it doesn't even make sense, because it says, Master, who did sin, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? You get that? He was born blind, but they're asking, did this man sin that he was born blind? Okay. Or did his parents sin? So, it doesn't even make sense. But who did sin? But they're making the assumption that somebody sinned. That is why he was born blind. Jesus explains to them in verse 3, Jesus answered, neither hath this man sinned nor his parents. Now, it doesn't mean that they never sinned. But what the disciples are asking is, what big sin did this man or his parents commit that caused him to be born blind? So they're not saying, they're not recognizing that, well, just any sin was going to cause this. They're looking, but what's this big thing? What's the big sin they had in their life? And so when Jesus answers, he says, this man hasn't sinned and neither have his parents. In other words, he's saying that there's no big sin that they committed that was directly leading to his blindness. They, of course, sinned. Everybody sins. But he's telling them they've got this wrong. Look at the end of verse 3. But that the works of God should be made manifest in him. One of the things that's a very common question that people have is, why did fill in the blank happen? Or why do bad things happen to me? Or why do bad things happen to other people? Or I think someone might have even written a book, I think a secular book, but why do bad things happen to good people? Or there's a saying there, or the question, why do bad things happen to good people? Which that's kind of presumptuous as well, just assuming that everybody's good when the Bible says there is none righteous. So yes, we, in our sinful condition, we certainly would be deserving if God wanted to bring bad things upon us. But Jesus is saying this is not what's going on here. But the works of God should be made manifest in Him. And oftentimes when an individual is asking about a specific situation, why did a bad thing happen? Why did? I just heard someone say this the other day, and I thought, just came up in conversation, all of a sudden this person bluntly said, there was a few people there, not just myself, but, so why did my husband die? Why did my husband die? And they were talking about karma, and she says, well, if there's karma, then why did my husband die? Well, that went pretty deep real fast, okay? But I felt for the person. There wasn't really a good opportunity for me to really, we got interrupted, and someone else kind of answered first, and then there was an interruption, so the conversation didn't continue. But that's a question that was on this person's mind. So if there's karma, then why did my husband die? And one person was saying, I believe in karma, and then another person, well, I don't believe in karma. Why did my husband die if there's karma? And I thought about that for a moment. And I was thinking, what if I had the chance to respond, what should I say? Because she's saying, she didn't say just why do bad things happen. She said, why did my husband die? That's a tough question to answer. That's a really tough question to answer. And I just believed in that moment it would not have been appropriate for me to say, well, back in the Garden of Eden, sin entered into the world and we live in a corrupted world, and so that's why bad things happen. But she's not asking why bad things happen. She's asking, why did my husband die? Because not everybody dies young. And this person died young. My heart went out to her. Because that's a tough question. And there are times when we don't always know the specific answer. People like to have answers, and I think we like to give answers when we can. But when there are times, we don't always know why something happens in that given moment. And I can't speak, I'm not coming from the perspective of God where I can see exactly why He allowed that to happen in this person's life. And this person's not a Christian. They were not Christians. But a lot of people have that question. And the general answer as to why bad things happen, for me, is pretty simple. It is that we do live in a fallen world. We live in a corrupted world, so bad things are going to happen. There is disease. There are accidents that take place because we live in a fallen world. So that's a good general answer. So if someone's wondering just in general, why do bad things happen? Good answer. Take them back to the Garden of Eden, give them the history, and in the process of that, you can give them the gospel. But what about who did sin, this man or his parents? That he was born blind. And Josiah's still having a hard time getting past that, this man or his parent. But the focus here needs to be is that Jesus is giving the reason why this man in particular was born blind. That the works of God should be made manifest in him. Now the eternal God, He sees the beginning from the end. So that when this man was born, he was blind. God allowed him to be blind. And then thinking a number of years later, here's this man who's going to be healed. So God would get the glory. The works, God's could do a work. And that is why at times certain people get sick or they go blind so that God can do a work in their life. There are people who might get sick, they might get cancer, and they might survive, and they might be miraculously healed. I was just reading of I believe he was a pastor at one point. I know his son is a pastor and started a church. But this man apparently has had in Washington State, a 9+ year battle with cancer, I believe lymphoma. And just yesterday, he sent an update on a forum that I'm a mailing list or a group that I'm a part of. It's in a lot of independent Baptist preachers. And he was saying that he's been declared cancer-free. And one of the things, apparently the last year, he was given, they took out, this just blew my mind. They took out his T cells. You hear a lot about T cells in regard to coronavirus and the immunizations and things. They took out his T cells and they put some sort of receptor or did something to his T cells that would then cause his body to fight the cancer. And I don't know if it's experimental or if it's how common it is. And as far as they can tell, it worked. I mean, absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. So they take his T cells and they ship them from Washington to California. And they do the whatever they did to the T cells, and then they send them back to Washington and they put them back in him. And that helped his body fight off this cancer. It's just absolutely amazing. Now, for man who does not believe in God and just wants to, thinks from a more humanistic end, they just look at that as, wow, look at how great we are as humans that we can figure this stuff out. But for the Christian, our perspective should be, thank God that He has given man the opportunity to research and study and do all these experiments, given people minds to think that these things are even possible. And so in that regard, yes, it was a work of man, but ultimately it's God that allows that to happen and gave man the mind to figure that out. And therefore, you can give glory to God, say God saw fit to heal him. Because there are a lot of things that man tries to do that don't pan out, and then there are some things that are successful. But what an amazing thing. God does things primarily for His glory and pleasure. So there might be someone here, you might be thinking, why did this particular thing happen in my life? Why did I lose this loved one? Why did I lose? There aren't always easy answers for each individual situation. It's something we need to yield to the Lord and just seek the Lord about and be willing to hand over to Him. But ultimately, what God does, as far as the big picture, is for His glory and pleasure. Turn to Revelation 4:11. Revelation 4:11. When I say God for God's pleasure, it's, in other words, He has the ability and He has the right to do what He pleases. What He pleases. Revelation 4:11 says, Thou art worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power. So first of all, God is worthy. To what? To receive glory and honor and power. For, and this is the reason why, for Thou hast created all things, and for Thy pleasure they are and were created. Everybody was created for God's pleasure, so our ultimate goal in life should be to live to please God. Because that's why He created us in the first place. And by the way, when we live to please God, then we experience more pleasure in life. The Bible says, at Thy right hand are pleasures forevermore. Thou wilt, I'm probably not going to quote this maybe completely correctly, Thou wilt show me the path of life. In Thy presence is fullness of joy. At Thy right hand there are pleasures forevermore. So it's not just, so I got to live to please God, but what's in it for me? No, when you put God first and you live to please Him, there'll be a lot of good things. And the world calls that karma. I just call it God, because it is God. Karma. I was thinking, karma doesn't even make sense. How is it? It's sillier to believe in karma than it is to believe in God. Like some impersonal force gives you good things if you do, you get what you do, whatever the whole thing with karma is. It makes a whole lot more sense. There's a personal God who causes these things to happen and puts certain laws in place. Makes a lot more sense. But when you put God first, then it also results in blessings and pleasure for us. God blesses that. Generally, as I said, bad things do happen because we live in a fallen world. We don't always know the reason a specific person lives, dies, or suffers. I forget what day it was. I was driving the car, and I have satellite radio in the car and have it on, usually on the Symphony Hall channel. And a song came on that brought back some memories. It was the song "You'll Never Walk Alone." It's more of like an operatic type of song. Normally that's instrumental, that's on the Symphony Hall channel, but they were playing this song by Andrea Bocelli. And he has a new album out apparently, and I haven't listened to much of his music, but Andrea Bocelli has this new album out. One of the songs he sings is "You'll Never Walk Alone," and so they were featuring him on for that album, and they were going to have some virtual town hall meeting with Andrea Bocelli. And so I heard this song, "You'll Never Walk Alone," and it brought back memories because when my wife and I met at college, we went to a Valentine's banquet together. And there's an older couple that tremendous singers. And during this Valentine production, I think it was probably close to the end, they sang that song. And that's probably one of the few things I remember back at that time was just stuck out to me. Just they did a tremendous job of singing that song. And so Andrea Bocelli is singing this song, and a number of different artists have sung that song. But one of the things that I guess I forgot about, didn't realize, I just don't know much about Andrea Bocelli other than I'd heard of him, is that he was born to Alessandro and Eddie Bocelli on September 22nd, 1958. Now, Bocelli is blind. He was blind from a very young age. Doctors had advised the couple to abort him as they predicted that the child would be born with a disability. But they did not abort him. It was evident at birth that Bocelli had numerous problems with his sight, and he was eventually diagnosed with congenital glaucoma. And eventually he went blind. He was, I guess, hit in the eye with a soccer ball or something when he was for 5 or 6 years old, and then he ended up going permanently blind. He has stated that his mother's decision to give birth to him and overrule the doctor's advice was the inspiration for him to oppose abortion. He said that in an interview apparently several years ago. And so I got to thinking about that and how, well, first of all, that it's unfortunate that a possibility of a birth defect would even cause someone to end their child's life. As a matter of fact, that just happened in the United Kingdom. A woman with severe mental, bipolar and severe mental problems, the baby had a 5% chance of a facial abnormality, and she jumped in front of a train in the United Kingdom, committed suicide, killed herself and her baby. What a horrible thing. And but I thought, wow, think about the people, and Bocelli's a secular singer. Think about the tremendous talent he has as far as his singing ability, and how many people have enjoyed his music over the years, and how even though he lost one of his senses, and oftentimes this happens when a person loses one of their senses, they are strengthened in another area. And with him, apparently, a tremendous singing voice. So we don't always know the reason. Why was he born blind? Not born blind, but why was he blind? Why was he born with a defect? Who knows? But all I know is there's a tremendous talent there. God gave him something else to use. And so the specifics are not always clear, but we do know, turn to Romans 8:28. We'll come back to John chapter 9 in a moment. Turn to Romans 8:28. We do know for the Christian, and we do know that because God is good, that He works all things together for good to them that love Him. Romans 8:28. Romans 8:28. And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to His purpose. So this is not a verse that says just simply all things work together for good. It is all things work together for good to them that love God. And it doesn't say that everything that happens to them that love God is good, but all things work together for good. Just love God, put God first, be committed to Him, stay faithful to Him, trust Him even through those hard times and those bad times. And if you just submit these things to Him, the situations in life to Him, He can work all those things out for good. And there's the promise here, and we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to His purpose. And so God, for every Christian, God has a special purpose, and for you to bring glory to Him through your life in whatever way He directs you in life. It's ultimately to bring glory to Him, to please Him, and He promises to work all things together for good. Even the bad things. Even the bad things. And so I'm glad for that. God is good. So even though we don't always know why God allows bad things to happen, we do know that He is good, so He does have an intention to bring some good out of it, to work it together for good. But we need to love Him. We need to go forward living for His glory. Now back in John chapter 9, part of the conventional wisdom, the second part of conventional wisdom here we see is that the Pharisees were the best teachers. So the first part of the conventional wisdom was he was born blind because somebody sinned. The second piece of conventional wisdom is, well, the Pharisees are the best teachers. They just assumed they were the best teachers. Look at verse 25. Actually, let's read down through this passage here and we'll work our way through. In verse 8, the neighbors therefore, and they which before had seen him, that he was blind, said, Is not this he that sat and begged? Some said, This is he. Others said, He is like him. But he said, I am he. Therefore said they unto him, How were thine eyes opened? He answered and said, A man that is called Jesus made clay and anointed mine eyes, and said unto me, Go to the pool of Siloam and wash. And I went and washed, and I received sight. And notice this man's faith, that he obeyed. We can see at the end of the chapter that he didn't even realize that Jesus was the Christ at that point in time. He just knew, all right, this person put clay on my eyes, told me to go wash, I'm going to wash. So it wasn't that Jesus healed him on the spot. It did require a step of faith on this man's part to obey what Jesus had said. And that's what he did. Then said they, verse 12, then said they unto him, Where is he? He said, I know not. They brought to the Pharisees him that aforetime was blind. And it was the Sabbath day when Jesus made the clay and opened his eyes. Then again the Pharisees also asked him how he had received his sight. He said unto them, He put clay upon mine eyes, and I washed, and do see. Therefore said some of the Pharisees, This man is not of God, because he keepeth not the Sabbath day. So there we come back to, talk about missing the forest for the trees. They are focused on the Sabbath day, yet not rejoicing in the fact that this man was healed of his blindness. Then again, the Pharisees asked him, and I'll read verse 15. Then again, the Pharisees also asked him how he had received his sight. He said unto them, He put clay upon mine eyes, and I washed and do see. Therefore said some of the Pharisees, This man is not of God, because he keepeth not the Sabbath day. Others said, How can a man that is a sinner do such miracles? And there was a division among them. So there's, in this case, a disagreement between how could he be a sinner? I mean, he wouldn't be able to do these miracles. And another saying he is a sinner, he's not keeping the Sabbath day. Verse 17, then they say unto the blind man again, What sayest thou of him, that he opened thine eyes? He said, He is a prophet. But the Jews did not believe concerning him that he had been blind and received his sight, until they called the parents of him that had received his sight. And they asked them, saying, Is this your son, who ye say was born blind? How then doth he now see? His parents answered them and said, We know that this is our son, and that he was born blind. But by what means he now seeth we know not, or who hath opened his eyes we know not. He is of age, ask him, he shall speak for himself. These words spake his parents, because they feared the Jews. For the Jews had agreed already that if any man did confess that he was Christ, he should be put out of the synagogue. Therefore said his parents, He is of age, ask him. Then again they called the man that was blind and said unto him, Give God the praise, we know that this man is a sinner. I mean, just the self-righteousness. Give God the praise. We know this man is a sinner. He answered and said, I like this answer personally. He says, whether he be a sinner or no, I know not. But one thing I know, that whereas I was blind, now I see. I mean, whether or not he's a sinner, all I can say is I can see now. What a great answer. And notice now, then said they to him again, what did he to thee? Now how opened he thine eyes? He answered them, I have told you already, and ye did not hear. Wherefore would ye hear it again? Will ye also be his disciples? No, I just love the statements of this person. Then they reviled him and said, thou art his disciple, but we are Moses' disciples. We know that God spake unto Moses. As for this fellow, we know not from whence he is. And here's where the conventional wisdom gets turned on its head, because this man ends up being a better teacher than the Pharisees. In verse 30, the man answered and said unto them, why, herein is a marvelous thing, that you know not from whence he is, and yet he hath opened mine eyes. So they claim to know. I mean, we know that God spake to Moses. We don't know about this man. He's saying, this is a marvelous thing that you wouldn't know this. He performed this miracle. How can you not know this? So part of what he taught them is, in who Christ is, he's indicating this man must be from God. He didn't really have the complete understanding of him being the Messiah yet, but he had some knowledge. And then he also had a good grasp on who God hears in verse 31. Now we know that God heareth not sinners, but if any man be a worshiper of God and doeth his will, him he heareth. So if this man is able to heal me, Jesus is able to heal me, well, God doesn't hear sinners. How would, if he's a sinner, and I believe it was God that healed me, those two things don't fit. Because God's not going to bless someone who's just an outright living in sin person who doesn't worship him or do his will. And there's a good truth in that, because David said, I believe it's in the Psalms, if I regard iniquity in my heart, the Lord will not hear me. And so we should not expect answered prayer if we have just blatant sin in our lives that we refuse to get right with God. Don't expect then you go before. It hinders your prayers. Don't expect to go before God and have a free, open relationship with God of asking and receiving. We need to get some things right with him first. But those that are a worshiper of God and doeth his will, that's the ones that God hears the most. Verse 32, since the world began, was it not heard that any man opened the eyes of one that was born blind? So he's got a grasp of history and how amazing the miracle was. He says, I've never heard of this before, that a blind person was healed. So he's making the case here, all right, there's something special about this person. This person is not just some sinner who, I've experienced this. I've experienced the healing power of this person. And then in verse 33, if this man were not of God, he could do nothing. And so there's a recognition of God's power, saying, this is an amazing miracle. If he weren't of God, he couldn't do it. Absolutely not. But notice their conventional wisdom they're reiterating here. So, verse 34, there's two aspects of the conventional wisdom. They answered and said unto him, thou wast altogether born in sins. So they're going back to the first conventional wisdom of, well, somebody must have sinned, that he was born blind. Thou wast altogether born in sins, and dost thou teach us? And so their conventional wisdom was, we are the most qualified teachers. We are the ones, you have no place to teach us anything, because we are the qualified ones. You were born in sin. And they cast him out. They cast him out. The third part of the conventional wisdom is the Pharisees had the idea that they were the enlightened ones. They were the ones that could see the most clearly. But the opposite of that is really there was someone else who could see more clearly than the Pharisees. In verse 34, they answered, Yeah, let's read verse 34 again. They answered and said unto him, Thou wast altogether born in sins, and dost thou teach us? And they cast him out. Jesus heard that they had cast him out. And when he had found him, he said unto him, Dost thou believe on the Son of God? He answered and said, Who is he, Lord, that I might believe on him? So, he's ready and he's ripe for the believing on the Son of God. He's just wanting to know who he is. That's a great place to be, when someone's just ripe and ready and they want to believe. You just need to tell them. If only it were that easy on a more regular basis. Unfortunately, it's not that way, but it's a wonderful thing when someone's just hungry and ready. I'm ready to believe on Jesus. I'm ready to believe on the Son of God. Verse 37, And Jesus said unto him, Thou hast both seen him, and it is he that talketh with thee. And he said, Lord, I believe. And he worshipped him. So compared to the Pharisees, who was the truly enlightened one here? Who could really see? It was the man who was blind, who now can see. It didn't take much. Think about, we've gone through a number of chapters here. We're in John chapter 9 here. How many times has Jesus been talking to the Pharisees up to this point, and they're still not getting it? Their hearts are still hardened. They're still blinded to the truth. And here's this blind man, and he gets healed. He's wanting to believe on the Son of God. He finds out it's Jesus. All right, I'm believing on you. Who's the real enlightened one there? Not the most educated in this case, not the religious leaders of the Pharisees, and not the ones who would be the ones viewed as the upper echelon of society, the ones who have a grasp on all the finer points, or at least appeared to have a grasp on the finer points of the truth. But the pride of the Pharisees kept them in a state of blindness. Let's read verse 39. And Jesus said, For judgment I am come into this world, that they which see not might see, and that they which see might be made blind. And some of the Pharisees which were with him heard these words, and said unto him, Are we blind also? Jesus said unto them, If ye were blind, ye should have no sin. But now ye say, We see, therefore your sin remaineth. In other words, the time you get to see the most is when you do realize that without Christ, you're not all that enlightened. And so when you recognize your blindness, when you recognize, wow, I'm missing something here. It's Jesus that I've been missing. It's Jesus that I've not been believing on. I want to believe on the Son of God. I need to believe on the Son of God. When a person recognizes, wow, I've been living in a state of blindness. Now I see. I see Jesus clearly. That's the person who gets their sins forgiven. That's the person who's cleansed of their sins. Jesus said, Ye should have no sin. But now ye say, We see, therefore your sin remaineth. They already thought they were okay. And so therefore, their sin was still remaining in them. Their pride, their own self-righteousness, and whatever other corruptions. It's pretty clear in history that some of the most high and lofty religious systems that look like they've got it all together are some of the most corrupt. We've been learning about that in our Sunday school study of the history of the churches. Just the utmost corruption. But, oh yes, fancy buildings, fancy clothing. Oh, they look very reputable. But then just a den of iniquity. And Pharisees are the same way. So they say, we see. They think they are already okay, but Jesus says, your sin remains. Because you're not seeing the right things. You're really still blinded to your condition. Turn to Matthew chapter 11. We'll just look at a couple of passages here in closing. Matthew chapter 11. Matthew 11. And verse 25. Matthew 11 and verse 25. At that time, Jesus answered and said, I thank thee, O Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because thou hast hid these things from the wise and prudent, and hast revealed them unto babes. Even so, Father, for so it seemed good in thy sight. All things are delivered unto me of my Father, and no man knoweth the Son but the Father. Neither knoweth any man the Father save the Son, and he to whomsoever the Son will reveal him. So he says, you've hid these things from the wise and prudent, revealed them on the babes. In other words, those who seem to be the most intelligent, the most educated, the wisest people, they were the ones who were the blindest when it came to Jesus. But those that unto babes, those who are revealed unto babes, what was he revealing? He was revealing it to those people who were very simple in their minds. He's revealing it to those people who had just simple faith, or were going to have simple faith, because even today it's very obvious that when I've seen, there are a lot of educated people that their education and their intelligence, their academia, their intellect actually keeps them more blinded to the simple truths of Scripture. Now, this isn't against education. And this isn't against wisdom. There's a worldly type of wisdom, and there's a godly type of wisdom. There are different wisdoms found in the Bible. So this isn't against education. This isn't against learning. But there are many people who are so fixated on intelligence, reason, their own humanistic thinking, that it blinds them to faith in Christ. It hinders them coming from faith in Christ. We live in, at least I don't know what time period technically the information age was. I don't know if we're still in it or if we're in some other age, but there's the phrase information age. And you would think the more information that's available, the more people would believe on Jesus. But it doesn't actually work that way. Now, on the other hand, as we learned in Sunday school, it's not good for people to be kept in the dark, to not have the ability to think freely and to gain knowledge. During the Dark Ages, that's the way it was. During the medieval times, when Rome was keeping people, banning the Bible and banning any type of doctrine that was opposed to the established religion. So, yes, having that ability to learn and think and gain intelligence is great. But some people are so studious in their academics that they don't get back to the simple faith in Jesus Christ. Babes, they're just simple-minded ones. They haven't learned too much yet, but they do know that Jesus is the Son of God. And notice in verse 28, we'll just read to the end of the chapter, "Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and ye shall find rest unto your souls, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light." That's another thing that kind of defies conventional wisdom is, boy, if you're going to make it to heaven, boy, there must be a lot of hoops you need to jump through to make it to heaven. Well, no, Jesus actually made it pretty simple. It's not hard to serve me, and I don't put heavy burdens on your back. My yoke, and yes, there is a yoke, so we are in service to the Lord, but my yoke is easy and my burden is light. But the Pharisees were the ones that kept piling the burdens on. Modern day works-based religions pile the burdens on. There's never enough. You can never be sure. But yeah, they might be very smart. They might have a lot of intelligence, but they're missing some of the key things. And turn one more place, 1 Corinthians chapter 1. 1 Corinthians chapter 1. 1 Corinthians chapter 1. Verse 26. 1 Corinthians chapter 1 and verse 26. "For ye see your calling, brethren, how that not many wise men after the flesh, not many mighty, not many noble are called. But God hath chosen the foolish things of the world to confound the wise, and God hath chosen the weak things of the world to confound the things which are mighty." Once again, kind of defies conventional wisdom. Well, certainly the most mighty things in the world, that's what God would use. Well, read your Bible and you find God uses the weak things. The things that don't seem to be usable in man's sight, God uses those things. And there's times when people get so mighty in this world, so noble in this world's position, that they focus more on that than focus on the things of the Lord. And once again, that's not against human strength. That's not against having wisdom. That's not against being noble. It's not against having a high position. But in general, and you read your Bible, God has chosen those who seem the most unlikely candidates to be used. And He's still doing it today. He's still doing it today. I think of the people who God uses to do His work. I think of the people who are most receptive to the things of the Lord. And it's not the rich and famous. It's not the top academics people. It's the average man, the average woman, boys and girls, young ladies, young men, who recognize their need of something more, and they recognize their need of Jesus Christ. They recognize their need of their sins being forgiven, and God has chosen to the weak things of the world to confound the things which are mighty. In other words, it doesn't even make sense from an earthly perspective. It doesn't make sense from an earthly perspective. Why God would do what He does, why He would use who He uses, but our job, our responsibility is we don't necessarily have to try to figure it out. We ourselves need to be ones who put God first and love Him, recognize our purpose is to please Him and glorify Him, yield ourselves to His leadership. And then those things that happen, maybe the bad things that happen, maybe the diseases, maybe the deaths, maybe the blindness, maybe all these things, we don't always know the specific reason why God allows those to happen in individual situations. But we need to put God first, love Him, worship Him, recognize our calling in Christ to follow Him. And God works all things together for good. And if you've trusted Christ as your Savior, you're one of those who can see the most clearly. No matter your rank here in this world, no matter your position, no matter your education, no matter what degrees you have, you can still see the most clearly. That defies any worldly title, any worldly wisdom. Anybody can see clearly when they put their trust in Christ. A man, a miracle, and conventional wisdom. And I'm thankful that God cared enough about this man to heal him, and that and it just shows the eternal God that He is, that He would have this all laid out. All right, He was born blind so that the works could be manifest. And yes, during that time period, certainly, I don't like to see that anybody. I certainly don't wish blindness on anybody. I tell you what, this man had a miraculous situation in life. And he lived all those years blind. And now the thing is, he's born blind, so he didn't really know what he was missing. But just think of the amazing perspective he had when he was healed. The man, the miracle. God is a miracle-working God. And He still works miracles today. But let's not just live our lives based on conventional wisdom. Let's think about what beliefs we have, what beliefs we accept, and recognize that God can work in whatever way He chooses. He can use whoever He chooses. And so let's put Him first. Let's follow Him as we live for Him.